We're in the home stretch of the Voice referendum now. Voting will be finished on October 14th. Many of us have already cast our votes via pre-polls or via postal votes. However, at this point it is still worth looking at the latest Voice polling, which is coming to us via Newspoll. It shows that the Voice is heading for defeat. It does not have majority support in any demographic. Whether young or old, male or female, city or country, it doesn't have support. Now this, like I've said, is according to the latest Newspoll, which was just released recently, and showed a decline in overall support. So overall support for the Voice keeps falling. It currently sits at 34% according to the Newspoll, down from 36%, and has been consistently falling over time. Now Newspoll has consistently recorded relatively low support for the Voice, so it is worth treating those results with a little bit of nuance. However, it isn't good news for the Voice if the Voice ultimately wants to try to prevail. And those results are telling. 58% intend to vote no, 8% don't know. For the Voice to succeed, it must win over either all undecideds and or a large number of no voters. This would appear to be a near Herculean task for the Voice campaign, suggesting that the Voice is very likely to ultimately fail, and very likely to fail to get the majority of support that it needs to carry a referendum, let alone a majority of voters in a majority of states. Support does, however, differ a little bit across political party, but even then it seems to lack a clear majority overall, including a clear majority amongst Labour voters. Only 13% of coalition voters support it, 48% of Labour voters support it, and 42% of Labour voters intend to vote no. 73% of Greens voters support the Voice. Only 28% of so-called other voters intend to do so. Now, the AFR recently did some polling of the so-called teal seats, the seats that supported people like Allegra Spender, or Monique Ryan, or Kylie Tink. Those seats even lacked a majority support for the Voice, although support in those seats appear to be higher than in some other areas. So the lack of support amongst other voters seemingly wouldn't just reflect One Nation voters, but could reflect broader demographics. So overall, it appears that the Voice is even struggling with Labour voters. Both men and women have also turned on the Voice. Only 31% of men and 36% of women support the Voice. Support amongst women has also declined, coming down from 41%. The support, or lack thereof, across men and women seems to have converged, suggesting that what was once a beacon of hope for the Voice referendum, being female voters, appears to have dissipated. The Voice also doesn't have majority support in any age group at all, which is telling. The Voice used to be trying to count on younger voters to get it across the line. But even then, younger voters are turning on it. Only 46% of younger voters, aged 18 to 34, intend to vote yes. More younger voters intend to vote no than vote yes. Younger voters are turning away. Support also quickly falls away for older age groups. Only 24% of people aged 65 or over intend to vote yes. Even if only younger voters voted in this referendum, the Voice would still fail, according to this poll. Neither the city nor the country intend to vote yes either. Only 35% of metropolitan voters intend to vote yes, 31% of regional voters seemingly support it. It doesn't seem to have support in either of those two groups. However, it is worth noting that some other polling has suggested that inner city areas might be more inclined to vote yes than perhaps outer metropolitan areas. Still, it isn't good news for the Voice referendum. Furthermore, the Voice is losing support regardless of education level. University-educated people are now more likely to vote no. Only 45% intend to vote yes. Support is lower in other demographics. Now, part of the decline across university graduates might be the increasingly strident, vitriolic, and somewhat condescending tone taken by some, although not all, yes-supporting academics. This might have actually turned off their alumni and been counterproductive to getting the Voice across the line. Perhaps the universities and the academics would have been better served by trying to convince people with logical, methodical arguments rather than tell people how to vote. The line that they should trust experts simply doesn't carry very much weight anymore. So the Voice appears to have no majority support across any demographic. We should of course acknowledge that amongst Labour voters and Greens voters, more people intend to vote yes than intend to vote no. But we should remember, in this same poll, Labour only has 34% of the primary vote. The Greens only have 12% of the primary vote. So support across either of those two parties is simply not enough to carry the day. And this therefore suggests that the Voice is likely to fail at the referendum. The question is then, why is it that support for the Voice is declining. What has caused the persistent decrease in support for it? Well, we can only speculate. After all, we don't know exactly why voters turned off it between last week and this week, but we can make some inferences. Now, in prior videos, I've covered all of the reasons I intend to vote no, all of the problems that I have with the voice referendum and with the proposal. However, it still begs the question of why it is that support overall has decreased, because many of those problems already existed. Well, there's probably a few reasons. First, as we're getting closer and closer to the referendum, people are probably doing more and more research about the voice and about what it entails, about whether and to what extent the voice might have power if the voice would ultimately come into being, and people are perhaps realizing that the voice could in fact have genuine real power. It would be the only constitutionally enshrined body that would be able to make representations to the government, whereas no other body is enshrined in the Constitution being able to do so. Furthermore, the voice would presumably need to be consulted on myriad matters. It is the only body that would need to be consulted in that manner, because it is the only body enshrined in the Constitution. This would therefore give the voice significantly more power than any other private sector lobby group, and is therefore would be giving more rights and more power to one group of Australian citizens, which might look inherently discriminatory to many voters. Furthermore, many voters might be turned off by the rhetoric and the campaign style of the voice referendum, and here there's probably two overarching problems. On the one hand, you've got the dogmatic, strident, vitriolic style of campaigning that is coming from some people, such as Marsha Langton and some of the Yes campaigners that are going around accusing the No campaign of spreading quote-unquote misinformation, all the while spreading misinformation themselves. On the other hand, you've got campaigners like Anthony Albanese that seem to sidestep any serious question. They seem to present the voice as a modest proposal, all the while Yes campaigners themselves suggest that the voice might be a structural reform or bring about a redistribution of power within the Commonwealth. You have the voice campaign speaking out of both sides of their mouth, and people become confused because when they're doing their own research, they see contradictory messages coming out of the voice campaign, and people therefore say they don't know what is going to happen because the messages coming from the Yes campaign themselves are internally contradictory. People don't know what is going to happen, not because they haven't done their research, but because when they're doing their research, they come up against conflicting information from the very people who are advocating for the voice to begin with. Not only that, the words that would go into the Constitution themselves are inherently vague and need to be interpreted by the court and by lawyers. We don't know exactly what the court is going to determine when these things are litigated. That uncertainty is inherent in any law that is passed, but the big problem is that when it's going into the Constitution, that creates a lot of fear. And the mere fact that there are existing vague laws, existing laws that maybe are perhaps too widely drawn, is not a reason to bring in yet another widely drawn law that has yet more uncertain consequences that people would then need to take a risk on. The government sort of sorted this out before they brought the referendum to the vote. This likely is why people are turning on the referendum as they're becoming more and more aware of the issues and as they are turning their mind more and more to what the voice entails. But I would be interested to hear your thoughts about what is happening in this voice referendum and why it is the support is declining. The No campaign, however, should not become complacent. After all, the Yes campaign has significantly more financial support. It can run ads across the airwaves. It can do letter drops. It can put leaflets into letterboxes. It can go and do door knocking because it is significantly better resourced than the No campaign is. The No campaign is really running a grassroots campaign at the moment, but it is still succeeding. It's also incredibly telling that the Yes campaign is doing so badly, despite being significantly better resourced, despite the fact that the government is campaigning for the Yes side of the referendum, despite the fact that donations are reportedly tax deductible for the Yes campaign, but not the No campaign, despite all of these clear advantages, despite the fact that the media seems to be lining up behind the Yes campaign, despite the fact that many corporations and universities are lining up behind the Yes campaign, it is still failing. And that's telling. Because if the Yes campaign didn't have the disproportionate financial resources that it does, one wonders how badly it would actually perform if it were competing on a level playing field. But in any case, that's what's happening with the latest voice polling. It does look like the voice is headed for a defeat, headed for a rather sizable defeat, but again, it remains to be seen what happens, and no one can take the result for granted. And if you've got any thoughts about the polling, or any thoughts about what is likely to happen, well, definitely do let me know that in the comments below. But I will leave you with this. Remember to vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain about the outcome. So make sure you get to the polling booths if you haven't voted already.